You probably wonder how this little Denmark on the prairie came to be. Well, it all began with one man. Christian Jensen on the island of Fyn. The year was 1868. His wagon was pulled by one horse and one mule. When Christian Jensen and his wife stopped for the night in the area that would become Elk Horn, they were impressed with the rich prairie soil. Christian and Mary had found their new home. Christian Jensen encouraged his Danish friends and family to move here. And the new Danes brought their family, who brought more friends and their friends. Generations later, we still spoke Danish on every street, in every store, and in every home. But things sure have changed around here. Only a few people speak Danish anymore.
Welcome back to Elk Horn, Iowa, a small rural settlement in the Midwest of the USA that somehow became Dane country, a little piece of Denmark in America in the late 1860s. The clip that started this episode is with the old resident Egon Simonsen from the documentary Denmark on the Prairie. And it's a clip that I only just found after I did the first episode from Elk Horn. Here you might remember that I made up a story about a Danish couple that arrived here in 1868. Here we see Mary and Christian Jensen. They lived in Kerteminde, a quaint little town on the island of Funen in Denmark, here in the second half of the 1800s. When they arrive in this place in Iowa in 1868, there isn't even a village. And Christian and Mary knew that they had found their new home. The rolling hills and the fertile soil reminded them of Denmark, giving them a sense of belonging. And I simply picked two random names, Christian and Mary, and made up that they were from the island of Funen in Denmark. And then I find this clip with Egon saying that the first Danes to arrive here was
Christian Jensen on the island of Fyn. The year was 1868. Christian and Mary had found their new home.
Christian and Mary from Funen, and that they arrived in 1868. This is such a crazy coincidence that it was so spot on. It wasn't the real Christian and Mary from Funen I was talking about. That was totally made up. Weird, right? Anyway, the documentary Denmark on the Prairie really put the small village of Elk Horn, Iowa on the map back in Denmark and made a lot of people here quite famous in Denmark. At the time of the film, Egon was 91 years old and he was the last remaining Danish immigrant in Elk Horn. He was born in Hjørring in Denmark in 1921, and when he was just around 7 years old, he immigrated with his parents in 1928. Here in Elk Horn, they called him the Silent Dane. And nevertheless, he became the golden voice of the documentary, and I'm gonna borrow a few clips with him in this episode. Egon Simonsen passed away just a year after the documentary in 2015. My name is Palle Bo. Welcome back to Iowa.
This is The Radio Vagabond.
This episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. You know what it is, you can find a cheap place to stay and blah blah blah, all of that. But now you can also find flights. Yeah, and the website's got a brand new design, so I hope you like it. Go to Hotels25.com, find a flight, and find a place to stay.
Our grandparents immigrated, most of us, to this area. We're still like 43% Danish Americans. But we grew up on Danish open-faced sandwiches, medisterpølse, frikadelle, or rollapop. That was part of our normal food. We weren't trying to be Danish. We just grew up Danish. Mm-hmm. We were Danish Americans. And as my one immigrant grandmother said, I am now an American. I'm proud of my Danish roots, but I am an American, so you'll never forget that. But all their cooking, they made the Danish rye bread, and the lots of butter, everything that they brought with them to America. So we were just this little area in 25-mile radius. We're one of the largest Danish rural settlements in the United States. But I think it was fascinating to Denmark, especially after the European Union, and you kind of were losing maybe your Danishness.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. You were afraid that would happen, and you kept your kroner because you wanted to keep your Danishness. But there was that fear that, in Denmark is such a small country, you're 1/3 the size of Iowa. So I think you're looking at us like, we can't believe there's somebody so proud of their heritage and their Danishness. Why did they bring a windmill from Denmark, from Nørresnede? That story in itself is unbelievable for a town of 650 residents.
In 1975, one of my friends, Harvey Sorensen, went to Denmark. Harvey Sorensen fell in love with the windmills in the Danish countryside. He liked them so much he thought we should have one right here in Elk Horn to remind us all where we came from.
Elk Horn is billed as the largest Danish settlement outside of Denmark, and Harvey Sorensen decided to move a little bit of Denmark to Elk Horn, that little bit being a complete 70-foot-high, 125-year-old windmill. Imported piece.
It was a crazy man's idea, an impossible dream. The mill was located in Nørresnede, and within days, the people in Elk Horn had collected $30,000 for the project. In Denmark, they soon began dismantling the mill, piece by piece, loaded it on 2 trucks, put it on a ship, sailed it across the Atlantic Ocean. It arrived as one big pile of rotten wood.
The old joke is there was no longer anything rotten in Denmark. It was now in Elk Horn, Iowa.
What had seemed like an impossible dream now seemed like a possible nightmare. And we didn't know anything about building windmills. But the people in Denmark had put numbers on every piece of wood and made a 1-to-10 scale model that showed where all the pieces should go. 300 people got involved with restoring and rebuilding the windmill. When the mill finally opened in 1977, thousands of people came to celebrate and eat æbleskur and medisiples. It was a big day for Elk Horn.
We kick off where we left in the latest episode from Elk Horn, back at the old Danish Windmill and the manager, Lisa Steen Riggs. As you might remember, they were struggling financially, running the windmill, when the Danish documentary film came as a godsend and brought attention to this Danish American community and made it famous in Denmark.
So the first documentary was telling our story about our Danishness, and also they followed some young people that didn't know if they were going to stay here once they left school. So some interesting stories came out of there, but a lot of humor and Danish humor. And that's the people in this community have that also. And then what happened to this little town? How did it start out? What our history was?
I wish I could tell you that everything is going great in Elk Horn after our little revival. But we have an old debt to pay.
And because of the film, Denmark on the Prairie, the donations came in from Denmark, like in a matter of a few days, $10,000 worth of donations. It might have been $5 here, $10 or $100, but Denmark got us through that rough times. It was so heartwarming to all of us that this should happen like that. So we came out of that hole, was able to pay off the bank.
You see, we bought the windmill in Nørresnede in 1975 and sailed it all the way across the ocean. Over 300 volunteers worked on rebuilding it in Elk Horn. But the windmill became the symbol of our town. Lisa got the job managing the mill. She was just 21 years old and a true Dane. Back in the day, money was no problem. We got tourists all the time. Everybody had to see our windmill. But now the buses have all been here, and people don't have money to spend anymore. We still owe a lot of money to the bank, and it's expensive to keep the old mill in good repair. But Lisa keeps fighting to keep our little piece of Denmark alive. She put her life into that mill.
The windmill itself is a dangerous machine, and it is so important that we keep it in good repair. So we are constantly now fundraising. The gift shop, most of our items come out of Denmark. We go to market in Denmark. That used to be the sole income, but now we have to go out and try to raise funds and write grants and the whole bit.
The Danish Windmill is a non-profit organization, which means that donations are tax deductible. And even though they get donations, Lisa and her team needs to be creative. They do events, they sell a lot of typical Danish goods and souvenirs in their little shop, like beautiful blue plates with paintings that my parents' generation and those before them would hang on the wall. A piece of beautiful porcelain that they used as wall decorations and not as plates. Typically, there would be an annual Christmas plate that my parents would collect every year and add to the wall. Now it's not really a thing anymore in Denmark, but it is here in Elk Horn.
One time, we were the largest Danish plate dealer in the country. That's when the Danish Christmas plates, we were selling like 4,000 of those blue plates. Wow. And then, George Jensen, the mobiles became very popular with the young people. So it's always trying to find what it is the traveler's going to like. And of course, we have to have the inexpensive souvenirs, but then we can have the very expensive porcelain. We try to have a good mix. We try to have everything that Elam's would have in, but not the high price volume. We try to, here at the Windmill, we look at what brings back memories to the second, third, fourth generation Danish Americans. What was it that their grandparents, and why did they sing that funny song at Christmas when they dance around the Christmas tree and nobody knows how to say "You Holly Juligan" or "You"?
Yes, in the documentary, we see Lisa trying to teach the local kids in the school how to sing "Nu er det jul igen, og nu er det jul igen, og julen var lige til påske." And honestly, it wasn't perfect, but close enough.
Har vi julen, og nu har vi julen, og julen var lidt til påske. Nu har vi julen, og nu har julen, og julen var lidt til påske.
And people just butcher it here, but they got the tune and they try to do it right. Again, we aren't trying to exploit our Danishness. We're very proud. We try to share what Danish America is about now. We call it's our Danishness. And as generations, as people get less and less, they know about their heritage, except like Ancestry.com. People now are going in and refreshing the buttons, and it's finally showing that they're Danish. It's been showing that they're Norwegian for a couple of years now. So now it's finally enough people that are doing it. It's saying the word Danish from Denmark.
But with Norway and Sweden, you have to remember that back in the day, everything was Denmark.
We own Norway.
We just lost too many wars. That's why.
Travel is possible at any age. Your sense of adventure is just over the horizon. So, reach out and grab it. This is the Radio Vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
We read in the Danish American newspaper that there was possibly thoughts of building a national Danish museum somewhere in the Midwest. That's said in Decorah, Iowa.
In the early 1980s, there was an article about establishing a national Danish museum somewhere in the Midwest. Most likely in a bigger city like Minneapolis, 4 to 5 hours north of Elk Horn, or in Decorah, Iowa, southeast of here. But could a small village like Elk Horn be a contender?
Because of the Windmill having a success story and bringing so many people in, well, I read that article and it's like, this isn't right. Look at Elk Horn. We're in between two Danish American colleges. We had the first Danish folk school in America. We brought over this windmill from Denmark. We're proud of our Danish heritage. We had the 300 volunteers look at the Danish villages of Elk Horn and Kimballton. So the National Committee came back and said, you have to sell yourself. So within a few days, we had over 500 letters written that we need to be the location for the National Danish Museum.
The community in Elk Horn was deeply committed to preserving their Danish roots and saw the potential cultural and economic benefits that a museum like this could bring. In the mid-1980s, local leaders in Elk Horn, with Lisa Steen Riggs in the forefront, began to advocate for their town as the future home of the museum.
The National Committee came back and said they have it narrowed down to 2 places, that being Minneapolis-St. Paul and Elk Horn, Kimballton. So the state newspaper, the Des Moines Register, said they called it the David and Goliath story, big against small. And they had need to be near a metropolitan area, you need to have public transportation, you need to be Danish, near a Danish college. Well, we weren't metropolitan and we didn't have public transportation. But we had what it takes. And in the city, you get lost. It'd take you an hour to get across the city, just like it'd take us an hour here to go to either Des Moines, Iowa, or Omaha, Nebraska. So we really put up a good fight. And anytime they came, we wined and dined them. We gave them each a bottle of akavit or Peter Herring, whatever we could find that was Danish in our liquor stores. We had parties for them. We showed how we could cook Danish American.
Yeah,
and they
give them some snaps and some Carlsberg and some...
And even our governor got behind it. All the main, what you might say, government entities, we cannot lose something to Minnesota. Iowa needs this. So they went to war with us. So when it came down to it, they voted and they decided that they need to put the museum in Elk Horn, Iowa.
The community's efforts paid off when Elk Horn was selected for the site of the museum. This decision was a great victory for this small town. It was seen as an acknowledgement of Elk Horn's strong Danish American identity and the town's commitment to preserving and promoting this heritage. The local community, along with Danish Americans from across the country, rallied to support the museum's development. Fundraising efforts, including donations and grants, were crucial in bringing the project to fruition.
We were so excited, and we still are today very proud. And at the time, it was called the Danish Immigrant Museum, and now they've changed the name to the Museum of Danish America. But the land that it sits on is 20 acres of land that was donated by our Lutheran church here in town. In a time where a church is needing to raise money, they felt it was important for the community and for our Danishness and our heritage that they gave this beautiful farmland to the museum. You'll get to go there this afternoon and you'll see it's beautiful. They have a wonderful professional staff. We work together. They do their gift shop. They have a gift shop too. It's more the modern Danish, where we try to do more of the old Danish here. So we try to keep a little bit separate that way. 2 museums, 2 nonprofits, but it's nice to have them here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, you're welcome. And come back again. På gensyn.
Tak.
Gotta keep moving. Gotta keep moving. Gotta keep moving. Gotta keep moving.
I say my goodbyes and på gensyn to Lisa Steen Riggs at the Windmill and go to the Museum of Danish America, where I met Julia and Dia. So now I'm in the museum. It changed the name, right, Julia?
Yes, yeah. So it used to be the Danish Immigrant Museum, and now we're the Museum of Danish America. That kind of reflected sort of a more broad scope of the stories that we can tell, and the more broad scope of kind of what we want to represent in the museum.
Absolutely. Part of the reason we changed it was simply, as Julia said, to be a little more inclusive of all generations of Danish Americans and their descendants, and to really reflect that we're not just telling the story of immigration, but a continuing story of how their descendants are keeping Danish traditions alive and adapting to life in the United States.
It's dedicated to preserving and promoting the rich history and culture of Danish Americans and features a fascinating range of exhibits from artifacts to photographs that tell the story of Danish immigrants to temporary displays showcasing Danish art and tradition. The museum also houses a genealogy center where you can trace your Danish roots with expert help. Surrounding the museum is the Prairie Landscape Park, a serene outdoor space with native plants and sculptures. The museum isn't just about exhibitions, though. It hosts a variety of cultural programs, including lectures, workshops, and performances, along with the annual events like the Tivoli Fest that brings old Danish traditions to life with music, dance, food, and crafts. Admission to the museum is affordable, and by visiting you're supporting the preservation of Danish American heritage and enjoying a slice of Denmark right here in Iowa. For more information, visit their website, danishmuseum.org. Apart from the Danish Windmill and the bigger Museum of Danish America, there's also a small house called Bedstemors Hus, Grandma's House, here in Elk Horn. It's managed by the Museum of Danish America, and I go there with Julia. Her name is Jessen, and she's also of Danish heritage.
So Julia, we're in Bedstemor's house now, and it was built by a Dane who came over here, but the way he came across the ocean was a bit challenging.
Yeah, so Jens Otto Christensen built this house in 1908, and he had immigrated here in 1889 when he was 25. But yeah, his crossing was quite difficult because his ship that he was on actually ended up sinking.
Iceberg!
Something like that, yeah. This time, though, there were no casualties, so everyone was fine aboard. There was another ship that came and was able to pick up all of the passengers. However, he did lose all of the possessions that he had brought with him. Yeah, and I think everybody on board ended up without their possessions. And that journey, just from kind of the being stranded in the sea for a little while before the ship sank, and then the time it took to board another boat and then go wherever that boat was going and then transfer over to all different places, ended up taking 6 weeks instead of the 7-day journey that it was supposed to be initially.
So Jens Otto Christiansen came to the US without any possessions and without a penny in his pockets. But he managed to work hard and ended up here in Elk Horn.
Yeah. So he got to Elk Horn about 1898 to 1900, somewhere in there.
So he would have been in his 30s?
Yeah, so he was born in 1863. He was 25 when he came over. So yeah, in his kind of mid-30s is when he would have arrived here. And yeah, like I mentioned, he was kind of an eccentric guy. He was known for being kind of eccentric. So he would, and keeping in mind, this is rural Elk Horn, a farming community, that kind of thing.
We're not in New York City.
Right. He would go around in a coat with tails, and then either a derby hat or a top hat and a tie. And yeah, so just like a very, quite a dandy in the way that he would dress.
Oh my God, I like him.
I know, it sounds great. I kind of love that too. But yeah, so he then, because of that, and he would, carry himself in this very like upright kind of way. He had like a real, to me, it sounds like he had a real kind of presence about him. Mm-hmm. So he got this nickname, which was Prince Otto, because of that. So everybody called him Prince Otto.
Prince, oh my God, I like that. Yeah. But just to catch up, the years before he came to the U.S. and he didn't have any possessions, but he worked. What kind of work did he do before coming here?
Yeah, so he was a carpenter, but he was also involved in other things too in different areas where he was. In Omaha for a while, he was working as kind of like a driver, basically for a wealthy, important person and his family.
Probably a horse carriage.
Yes, yeah. So he was driving the carriage for this wealthy family. But yeah, he didn't enjoy that as well, though. In some of the notes, it talks about he didn't like having to kind of drive the children around to all of these late night parties and things like that.
You'd much rather be the prince.
Yeah, the Prince of Elk Horn, of course. Yeah.
No, Jens Otto, or as he called himself, Prince Otto, was a character straight out of a quirky novel. Picture a man with a twinkle in his eye, a top hat, a mustache curling upwards, and a liking for the dramatic. He built Bedstemor's house in 1908, but it was no ordinary home, just as he was no ordinary man. Jens Otto, or Prince Otto if you please, was known for his flamboyant personality and larger-than-life presence. With a chest puffed up like a rooster and a voice that could command a room, he proudly declared his little corner of Elk Horn, Iowa, a royal domain.
And then he came here and somehow he managed to accumulate enough funds to buy not only one lot of land, but two.
Yeah. So he purchased this lot for $150, and then the one next door as well for the same amount. And then later on, in 1915, he starts a 10-cent store on Main Street.
A 10-cent store, yeah. So that would be the equivalent of a dollar store today. So yeah,
Sure,
a 10-cent store.
Yeah, where he had, he sold a variety of goods there. He was known for being very generous at the store, to children at least. When they would come and get some candy there, he would often fill their bags more full than what they had paid for. But at the same time, he was also kind of a stickler for rules in a way, because he would say, to all the kids that came in, you can look, but you can't touch. So he was,
looking like a Prince Otto and giving extra candy. So a fascinating person. But and then he built these two houses. Were they similar at the time? Now they're a bit different, especially the interior. But were they similar?
I would think so. I'm not sure about the.
Why did he do two houses? Because it's big enough for a big family here.
Well, I'm sure he was probably thinking about kind of investing his own time and money into these spaces that then he could have people rent and do all these different things.
And there's a little twist to the story, because once this house was finished and ready to move into, he had a plan.
Yes, yeah. So he built the house. The story is that he built the house as almost a present, as kind of a honeymoon cottage for this girl that he wanted to propose to. And she lived kitty corner from the house. And so when he was done, when he was finished, he kind of marched on over there to her front door.
And he was, by this time, in his 40s, and she was quite some younger.
Yes. I believe she was in her late teens at the time. So
a creepy old guy. He might be a prince, but
So we can't judge her too harshly, because that was, probably a decision any of us would make.
Yeah.
Now, Prince Otto, in his flamboyant glory, wasn't just a man with a sense for drama and self-bestowed royal titles. He was also a man with a heart. And that heart had its sights set on a young lady. She was a teenage girl, radiant and full of life, while he was in his 40s, a seasoned man with dreams of grandeur and a heart full of love. But this fairy tale took a turn.
Yeah, and he got turned down.
Aww.
I know. So he had to turn right back around and come back to his freshly built house.
The young girl, perhaps flattered, but certainly not swayed by the grand gesture of this man, turned him down. Perhaps she couldn't see herself tied down to the whims of an older man who saw himself as a prince. Heartbroken, Prince Otto was left with a beautiful crafted house, but no princess to share it with.
We're unsure if he ended up ever living here, and maybe that's part of the reason he didn't, is perhaps the bad memories associated with it.
Yeah, I read someplace that he actually never lived here, but it's debatable.
Yeah. And we're also kind of unsure if he actually physically built the house himself, or if he was working with other carpenters, other people to build the house. But it was pretty likely. Yeah, likely that he, with his kind of carpentry background, then likely that he was doing a lot of it.
And then it changed hands. At some point, he ended up selling.
Yeah, so for a while he was renting it out to different Danish immigrant families or descendants of Danish immigrants. And that's kind of another one of the significant things about the house, is that Danish immigrants and their descendants are the only people that have lived in the house. So
no Americans to spoil it, or Dutch people.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dutch. I don't know why I said that.
But yeah, so it has that kind of long history within the Danish American community, and kind of being of this specific style for the time period and for the space that it's in as well.
Bedstemor's hus is a reflection of Prince Otto's eclectic tastes. Every piece of furniture, every artifact inside, seemed to tell a story, much like the man himself.
But yeah, so he rents it out for a while. In 1933, he sells it for I think $1 to the Salem Lutheran Home, which was the at the time it was the Salem Old People's Home, so like a retirement home and assisted living kind of facility. And it had just recently started at that time. And the agreement was that he would give it to them with the stipulation that then he would get free room and board for the rest of his life. So that was the agreement. So then he moved into the Salem Lutheran Home. When he moved in there, he started working as the postmaster and delivering the mail to all the residents of the Salem home. So people remember him kind of going on his way and picking up the mail and bringing it back to the Salem home so that he could distribute it.
He had a knack of captivating his neighbors with tales of his royal adventures. Whether they were true or not was beside the point. He entertained everyone that would listen to his stories of grandeur, daring adventures, and of course, his rightful place in history. His charisma was such that you almost believed him, even if common sense suggested otherwise. Jens Otto, the prince turned postmaster, wasn't just a character. He was a legend in his own right. His legacy, much like his house, stood the test of time. Walking through Bedstemor's house, you can almost hear the laughter echoing in the halls, see him winking from a photograph, and feel the warmth of his larger-than-life spirit.
They eventually sold it in 1946 to Mette Mortensen. And Mette was herself a Danish grandmother. And so that's actually where Bedstemor's house gets its name from, is that inspiration comes from Mette being the last occupant of the house. So she lived here for a number of years, and then in the 80s it was purchased by the Elk Horn Kimballton Arts and Recreation Council with the idea and the purpose of restoring it to its early 20th century style and furnishings, and using it to represent this Danish immigrant home, basically, from that time period.
Yeah. This 1908 house offers a glimpse into the early 20th century Danish American life. Restored with period-appropriate furnishing and artifacts, it provides an authentic representation of domestic life during that era.
So this is the museum is great, but coming here, and it's obviously a part of the museum, and it's not that it's walking distance, even though we drove. You can go in here and really get a sense of what it looked like back in when this whole community started.
The house serves as an educational resource with guided tours and cultural programs that highlight Danish heritage. Located within walking distance from the Danish Windmill and the Danish American Museum, it's a significant cultural landmark celebrating Danish American history.
Yeah, all of the furnishings that have been brought in and put into all of these different rooms are there to be period appropriate and to make you feel as if you've been transported into that time period, and give you a sense of what life was like at that time, and make you think a little bit more too about how you would have had to live in that period and in that time.
It's really unique and wonderful. Thank you for showing me.
That's all we have time for in this episode, but I have one more. And in that one, I go for a walk of the cemetery with the caretaker Warren, who's a bit of a detective. And then I finally get to meet the mayor of the city, Stan Jens, in his garage as we crack open a couple of beers in his garage next to his Harley Davidson. My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya!
Radio Vaga.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.